Welcome back to Oven News. It's your best news source for all the news that you need to. It's new. It's not old. Welcome back, fam. Instead of eating butter, today I'm going to talk about books and eat butter. It wouldn't be an Oven News video if I didn't do something that made you question my sanity. It's just not good. Maybe I'll have more later. You might be thinking, why'd you just take a bite of that butter? It's like you don't have any common sense. I have a whole book about common sense. Of course, that's not what it's about. You would know that if you read it. It's alright. I'm pretty sure this one's about common sense. Oh shoot. That one's not about common sense either. You would probably know that if you read it. That's okay. I got this one. This one also is about common sense. I just read this one recently, actually. I finished it a couple days ago. No way, it's not about common sense. You would know that if what else isn't about common sense? What have I read recently? Let's just start there. That one's not about common sense. This one's not about common sense. This one definitely isn't about common sense. I read all of these books recently. Actually, yesterday I finished 2 books. Okay, that's not fair. I have not read this one recently. But still, point being, you've never read it. No one watching this has ever read Common Sense. I'm currently reading through La Morte de Arthur, which none of you have ever read either. I just started it. I'm not very far. Like literally this morning or last night or whatever I started it. It's very good so far. Crazy. This one was written while the guy was in prison, Sir Thomas Malory. He was in prison for the second time. Bro was not a good guy. The only good thing he did in his life was write this behemoth of a book. He did literally nothing else good. He was born into nobility, rich, and then immediately decided to be a terrible person. He was in prison on charges of theft, burglary, attempted murder, and rape. And that's not great. And then after he was released from prison, found himself unsurprisingly back in prison for 2 years, where he wrote this in 1468. And then he was released 1470, died 1471. Guy was kind of an idiot, but he wrote this. And that's pretty freaking cool. It's a collection of, basically he was like, okay, here's all these writings about the King Arthur, and let's compile them into one proper story. That one, that's pretty cool. This one's also interesting. I actually haven't read this one all the way through, but it is very good. Common Sense by Thomas Paine was originally a pamphlet, here compiled in book form, but Common Sense, again, I have not actually read this one. I just thought it was funny for the bit because it's called Common Sense. It was about how it is common sense that you shouldn't let the British be ruling America. Basically, it was propaganda in support of an independent United States by Thomas Paine, and he's got some other things which are in here as well. Let's see. This is a very small pile that I've got here. I've got more books. These are really good books, and a lot of them are more prevalent today than ever before. 451. Right, Fahrenheit. I read this one in school. I read it again recently because of the AI company Claude. They whatever owns them, but Claude, they're training their AI on old and rare and valuable editions of books, and then they're shredding the books.
AI companies are deliberately destroying millions of books, often targeting rare ones so that they can better train their AI models on them. And I mean destroying. They are slicing them up, scanning them, and then throwing away books by the millions. The same company that's currently being sued and lost lawsuits to authors and others, yeah, they're actually targeting our information and knowledge bases. Let's get into the details, shall we? That is not exaggeration. They are shredding millions of books and specifically targeting, according to the people selling them books, rare ones. So they could theoretically destroy multiple last texts of various books so that their AI can be trained on it. An internal document even stated that Project Enma is our effort to destructively scan all the books in the world. We use a softcode name for it because we don't want it to be known that we are working on this. This document is visible to all Anthropic employees, but you should avoid talking about it in public areas. And the fact that we are working on this should not be shared to anyone outside Anthropic.
Chopping these books at the spine so they can be scanned more efficiently, scanning these books to train their AI model, and shredding them into a pulp.
Documents made public in a lawsuit from authors against Anthropic earlier this year revealed the company had bought millions of physical books, hired contractors to slice their bindings off, fed the pages into high-speed scanners, and then shredded the originals in a venture called Project Panama.
AI companies are now buying up rare books in bulk and destroying them.
AI companies are destroying physical books. They're destroying millions of rare out-of-print books to feed their chatbots.
AI companies are burning books.
So AI companies are literally shredding books because they filled the internet with so much AI-generated text that they can't even train on it anymore.
They're burning books.
What do you mean they're feeding books to AI and then destroying them after?
Could AI erase the past?
So it's literally like they were like, hey, that's a great idea. Let's just copy what they did in here. Like, isn't this crap that literally Hitler did? You're gonna keep using Claude, aren't you? That's what I thought. But no, this one, it's set in the future. It's set a few years after 2022, actually. So, it's about this guy. Get it? Only if you read it. It's about this guy who, he's a fireman, and they actually burn books instead of putting fires out. They set fires, and he like wakes up to like, oh my goodness, wait, what am I doing? And goes on this whole. Basically, he's tripping, like having an existential crisis for like 2 chapters. It's only a 3-chapter book, but okay. What else do I have here? Catcher in the Rye. This is another very good one. This actually inspired at least 3 murders, including the guy that killed JFK. So that's fun. I read it, and not in school, actually. I started reading it just on my own in high school, and my teacher was like getting all nervous and antsy, and he was like, what are you reading? What a dork. But no, this one, it's good. I read it, and it didn't make me feel like killing anyone. So I don't know what those people got out of it. I got out of it a bit of a depressed, kind of snot-nosed 16-year-old kid from New York. That's what I got out of it. No, actually, though, it was really good. It was a really good peek into, I feel like, the psyche of a teenager in the 40s. Very good book. This is my favorite book. I've actually read this one 4 times. I first read it in school, and I've read it 3 times since. It's literally like 2-3 hours of reading because it's small, little guy. This one's crazy. It's about 2 ranch hands in the 30s in California. Or I guess not the 30s. There's a date in here somewhere. I don't know. In the early 1900s, in Southern California, and their goals for the future and their relationship between each other. And that one freaked me out the first time I read it. This one I also read in school for the first time. I just read it again recently. Frankenstein, excuse me. Very good. Penguin Classics is also, Penguin Random House Publishing Company. Penguin Classics, they're good. Support Penguin. I don't know about their morality as a company. I just do know that they're making classic books more accessible to people who otherwise wouldn't have them. So whether or not they're morally corrupt, I don't know. But what they're doing is face value very good. So Penguin Classics, they're what's up. But Frankenstein, it is not about a tall green guy with a square head that moans and wants to be a zombie and he's the monster. And it is not about that. Frankenstein is the monster. It's about the human experience and what it means to be philosophically alive and the terror that can come with life that is mad that it exists and upset at you for making it in vain. And I don't know, it's good. It's a good book. Read it. It's good. This copy was actually a gift. Thank you for that, my brother. Very good gift. But I also finished this recently. This is the longest it ever took me to read a book, actually. I read Frankenstein in 6 days, but it took me 7 months to get through Paradise Lost. Not because it was particularly hard, just because I didn't read every day. Which, I mean, I don't know. Milo, don't eat the butter. Get off the table. Milo. Milo. Los gatos. Oy vey. No, Paradise Lost. I did finish it though. It was very good. I really quite enjoyed this one. This is one of the most beautiful works I've ever read. Most beautiful books probably ever written. I'm actually not a big fan of Shakespeare. I know. He's like, it's Shakespeare. He's the best English author of all time. And there's nothing wrong with his beauty. That's for sure. And I know he didn't write epics or novels, but he did write, I know there were plays, but he did write, and I get that there's an element that's lost when you read it versus watch it, that you're supposed to get the character is supposed to be embodied by the actor, and there's a level of depth and nuance lost. But at the end of the day, a movie is not bad because its actors are bad. That doesn't help. A movie is bad because its writing is bad. I don't know if you saw Backrooms. I did. The acting was great. The writing was terrible. That movie was not scary, and it was about nothing. It was a waste of money and a waste of time. I had fun going just because I went with friends and it was fun, but it was a trash movie because the writing was trash. Shakespeare, he writes very poetically and very beautifully, but his characters are poorly written. Don't care. That's my hot take. Fight me. My biggest beef is with The Merchant of Venice's Shylock. I hate that guy. Side tangent, bro is rich as all get out and lives in a Christian town, but he's Jewish, and so he gets a lot of hate and persecution. Should you hate on people just because they have a different faith than you? No, of course not. But he knew this before choosing to move to this place. But he's rich as balls, so he can choose to live anywhere. He can afford to live anywhere because he's rich as balls. So instead of choosing to live in a Jewish community where he would receive no hate, he chooses to live in a Christian community where he receives hate every day. And I mean, we get some cool things out of it, like, do I not bleed the same? That's pretty freaking fire. I've used that line before. That's fantastic. Or like the pound of flesh analogy. That's pretty great too. But Shylock's an idiot. He's just a freaking, I don't like him. He's stupid. Take your daughter and move to a place where you're not gonna get made fun of every single day. I mean, you could afford it. Whatever. Anyway, why am I talking about all of this? Why am I talking about all this? Ignore any further cat noises. Okay, why am I talking about all this? Why am I talking about all these books and making fun of you for being illiterate? It's because you're illiterate. And it's because there's a literacy crisis. How many of you can honestly say, after having read Of Mice and Men in high school, that you knew what it was about? Actually knew what it was about because I can read. I don't know how the freaking American public school system in a poor city popped out students that knew how to read. I mean, there was a kid a year below me that ended up going to Harvard, obviously on her own merit. It wasn't the freaking school that pumped her out like that, but it fostered a place for it, which is crazy. Whatever. That's neither here nor there. It's not like Harvard graduates can read either. It's not like anybody knows how to read anymore. What's the point? Why am I... For starters, I'm giving you some recommendations. If you like the stuff that I find funny, you'll probably enjoy the books that I like to read. I feel like that makes sense. So if that's any credibility, go read Frankenstein. Go read The Catcher in the Rye. Go read Paradise Lost. And I know I'm not the first person to say these because these are all gigantic names. These are all classics and modern classic books. I mean, Paradise Lost is like a 600-year-old book. The Morte de Arthur, I just started it, but also like 500, 600 The Morte de Arthur, also like 500-600 years old. These are all classic books. You don't need another person telling you to go read them. But because they're classics, you can find them anywhere. You can find them at your library for free. Libraries are free, by the way. If you can get yourself to a library during waking hours, then you just got yourself a book for 3 weeks for free. That's pretty fantastic. I love libraries. I support my local library. And then there's, freaking the Goodwill and thrift stores, and my recycling center has books for free. I don't know if yours does, but then there's used bookstores and new bookstores, and antique shops have books, and freaking Walmart has a book aisle. They're probably all AI, but they're, you can find books in most places, and they're falling out of style for some reason, which is probably why they're everywhere. People are trying to get rid of them. Nobody wants books anymore, which is crazy. I want books. I prefer the fancier kind of, as opposed to the, no offense, Penguin Classics, but this is prettier. I like the pretty books. This does fit in my pocket much better, which is great, but I like the pretty books. I figure if what you've got going on inside is this beautiful magnum opus that you've taken as an author, you've taken years of your time and put into, then the case, the cover, should be just as significant. I feel like give the beautiful art some beautiful art as a home. Anyway, I'm rambling. Just, these are good books. You should read them. So I'm starting off there. This is a list of recommended reading. I have a much longer list. I've read more books than this, but just of the ones I've read recently and of the ones that I know you can get anywhere. I know that Of Mice and Men is still in print. You can get it anywhere. It's going to be in print for a long time. I mean, it's Steinbeck. It's, same with, these are all banned books, aren't they? You might not find them in your school library, but you'll find them everywhere else. Do you see what I'm saying? Well, I guess Frankenstein's probably not banned. What does it mean to be freaking banned anyway? Just take it out of school libraries? Is that it? I don't understand the concept of banning a book. Books can't have morals. It's pieces of paper. You're reading squiggles on a piece of dead tree and then you're hallucinating a little bit. Like, how is that something that has morals? It can't be morally just or morally depraved. It's just a question of whether or not it is well written or poorly written. There's no bad book, there's just bad people. Whatever. So that's part one of why I'm doing this video. Here's some books, they're good, go read them. Why do you need to read them? What? Okay, well, first, literacy rates, gone. Nobody can read anymore. Here's a bunch of statistics on screen. AI. AI is a big contributor to that. The whole, I read this many books with AI, summarize this with AI, summarize everything. So let's summarize this, let's summarize that, let's shorten everything. Let's make it so that everything can go faster because you're going too slow. Because the faster you go, the less time you have to think. And if you're thinking, then suddenly that creates independence and autonomy. And if you have independence and autonomy, then you won't be mindless enough to buy the product that we know you don't need, but it makes us rich, so we want you to buy it. Sounds kind of Orwellian. That's literally how this is a dystopian novel. That's literally how this gets going with summaries. In this one, the government didn't ban reading. They're burning books, right? I'm going to spoil a little bit here. The government didn't ban reading. People stopped reading in favor of summaries and of shortened stuff down. And so the government was just like, well, nobody's reading, so they won't care if we make it illegal. And so they made it illegal, and they started burning all the books. And that's not great. I mentioned Orwellian. I don't have a copy of 84 handy, but the whole idea behind thought crime, right? If you ban reading and writing, then eventually you're banning thought. You know, if all a man thinks about, or if a man thinks all the time, all he has to think about is thought itself, right? That stupid meme that went around. Kind of right, though. If your thoughts are only contained to what's here, you don't pull anything from outside, you don't take anything out and put it on paper, it's all just up here all the time, and it only comes from what's here. There's nothing. You know, at birth, people are largely empty vessels. Nature versus nurture. I say both. Largely nurture. We're mostly empty vessels. You know, we take from the world around us. We get inspired by ideas. You know, and there's original ideas, you know, that are inspired from nothing, but most everything is inspired, at least a little, in part from something, somewhere, whether it's nature or somebody else's work, you know, and I don't think that Mary Shelley would have been able to write Frankenstein if she didn't have a basic understanding of literature. That's why a lot of authors are well read. Frankenstein references Paradise Lost, actually. 451 references Paradise Lost. And also Faulkner. I don't have any Faulkner on hand, but Paradise Lost is a good book. If there's two other really good books that are talking about it, that's as much as I got to say about Paradise Lost. Does it need more introduction than two of the greatest authors, in my opinion, of all time referencing it? Nobody's reading anymore. In part because AI, in part because just technology in general. People are saying we're in a post-literate era. That's depressing. That's really sad. I don't know, when did Plato live? I think it was Plato and Socrates, and they had fear that writing and reading would remove people's ability to remember just, you know, long stories. Like this guy, have you seen this movie? It's got Spider-Man in it. This guy was passed down orally for hundreds of years before it was originally written down in, I believe, the original Greek. And then it was passed down as a written book for, what, like 2,000 years until today. And this one, I believe, was originally translated in like the 90s or something. This version of it, the Robert Fagles, I think, I could be mistaken. But then it's, you know, translated into other languages, and this one, you know, it's in English because I speak English because I'm American, and racist, I guess. Guys were memorizing crap like that. Do you see this? This is not a freaking, the Iliad is even bigger. That was memorized too. I'm flipping to the back here and I'm finding 485 pages of epic poetry that people had memorized. Socrates thought that writing stuff, I think Socrates thought that writing stuff down people would be able to not memorize crap like this anymore. People can. We as humans are still capable of memorizing the entirety of the Odyssey, or the Bible, or of The Catcher in the Rye, or of Mice and Men, and anything else. You know, we are fully capable of memorizing all of this. I mean, think about how many words you know how to spell. You've learned that. You've memorized all of that. That is committed to long-term memory. Think about all the words that you know how to say or pronounce. What is there, 70,000 words in the English language? I don't know. But that's like a lot. Most people don't know all of them. Most people don't know half of them, at least nowadays. But there's a lot that you do know. You've memorized that. You know, we are capable of it, but we don't anymore because we don't need to, because we can write it down. Einstein, obviously, he meant books, not the internet. But he said, why memorize anything you can look up? I think it was memorize. I don't know. They were right, though. Nobody memorizes this anymore. Probably hundreds of people for actual hundreds of years had this committed to memory so that we wouldn't lose it before somebody had the bright idea to write stuff down. I don't know. I dropped out of college, but when I was going to college, I was going as a history major, and I was considering, I was minoring in geography. I'm not good at geography, but I couldn't minor in cartography, and I'm not good at drawing, so I don't know what I was doing in school. But regardless, I was majoring in history, and so I consider myself to be a history buff. I was an aspiring historian, and from a history perspective, oral traditions are bad. They're terrible. Write everything down, please. Please write everything down, because the idea that you don't need to write it down because you'll always have someone to remember it is a fine idea. But you can never count on whether or not your society will collapse, or whether it will be colonized, or whether it will be conquered, or whether it will just fade away. You know, it's like, we don't know what happened to the Aztecs. Gotcha! Yes, we do. They were all killed by the Spanish, like all of them. But I bet they weren't counting on that, and I bet they had stuff that they didn't write down. What happened to the Celts? Well, they turned into the Scottish and the Irish. Not entirely. Most of them were conquered by the Romans, who in turn ended up also falling, so it was all futile, you know. But a lot of their history we only have because of outside sources writing about them. They didn't keep a written history. We have an idea of who the Celts were, but it could be completely wrong because they didn't write anything down. They weren't counting on their society to collapse, but history has other plans, you know? And if they would have written stuff down, maybe the Romans would have burned all their writings. I don't know, but maybe they wouldn't have. It would have at least attempted to future-proof everything. So from that perspective, writing is better than not writing. And from the perspective of writing and reading, I don't know, it's good for you. There's a whole bunch of, I'll put it on screen, I guess, but it's good for you. There's a whole bunch of crap that says that reading and writing is good for you. And there's specifically something about physical. Don't get a Nook, don't get a Kindle, don't get an iPad with the Kindle app, don't get an e-reader, don't download ebooks on your phone, I say hypocritically. Get real books. You know, they're free in a lot of places, and a lot of other places they're cheap. And even you buy them, I bought this one new. It's a really good book. It's got like what, 200 pages, something. I mean, yeah, 270, 277. How many pages doesn't equate to how good the book is. I'm just saying it's a book. I paid $15 for this. That's not a whole lot of money. I know that if you're in a crunch, that can be a lot of money, but $15 for something that you can keep the rest of your life, pass on to your kids, read it multiple times, and it makes you better as a person is $15 well spent. Versus, this is my copy of The Scarlet Letter. It's a little beat up, but I got this for free, so I don't care that it's beat up. It's the same book, but it was free. I didn't have to pay for it. You can find free books. It's a thing. Especially if you have a cool family who's willing to gift you books. Point being, books are accessible, and they always have been. Well, not necessarily, but they are now. They are accessible. You can find books, you know. I mean, frick. You really want a book? Really can't afford it? My email is on YouTube. Email me. Maybe I can help you. I don't know. I just want you to read. Read something. Read anything. Not just anything. Don't read anything. Don't read Instagram comments. Don't read your news feed and all your bull crap. You want news? Buy a newspaper. You want to read? Buy a book. Avid reading is associated with higher IQ. Right now, for the first time in our history, we are dropping in IQ. Just as we're dropping in reading rates. Societal collapse is directly associated with dropping in IQ. When the Roman Empire fell, there was a drop in IQ, I think. I don't know. Just my point being, we are on the brink of societal collapse with everything that's going on. It's not just the reading crisis. You know, I mean, stuff has been screwed up since 2020. AI existing at all. AI is a big problem, by the way. I'm not going to do a whole video on it, but let's just cover a few things. They're wasting all of your clean water. There's hardly any of it left, by the way. They're shredding books, I guess, millions of them. Excuse me. They're shredding books, I guess, millions of them. People are having stupid AI hallucinations and getting addicted to AI. People are like, let's count that as one. It is causing irreversible brain damage. When people use it to think for themselves, they're outsourcing their thinking, and by outsourcing your brain, it causes brain damage because it starts to atrophy, and that brain, it's a muscle, you can't get that back, at least not to the amount that it was at before, or compared to someone who just had never used AI to think for them. So it creates that dependency, so you get addicted. So it's kind of one thing, but also because of that, we're outsourcing our thinking, which means we're losing autonomy, which is again Orwellian, because we get to the idea of eventually this will lead to thought crime. So there's at least 5 reasons not to use AI. Everything is bad now. Everything sucks. I can't even get ESPN Plus and then still catch all the Sounders games. That's really sad. Everything sucks now, and it's really gonna come down to the fight of our minds. It's in our Constitution that we have a right to, not just a right, but a moral obligation to replace our government with a just government, provided the unjust government is unjust. Meaning it's in our Constitution, it would be fully within the rights of the citizens to have a second Revolutionary War or a second Civil War and fix our government. Didn't Nepal just do something like that? We need that. Every country needs that. We're all screwed. I fail to see a form of government that currently exists on the planet that isn't morally depraved and corrupt, and that's bad. We're people, we're human beings, we live on this planet against our will. We can't leave, depending on who you ask, in accordance of our will, but regardless, it's the only planet we have. You and I are the only things we have, and that's all that matters. And if they get you thinking a certain way, then they win. If you decide you want to think and you want to be who you want to be an individual, you want to have your own thoughts, your own ideas, your own opinions, and make your own choices, that's the only thing that's going to fix it. It's not just the big conglomerates. It's the people running the show, At the end of the day, if you don't like your government, there's 2 things you can do about it. You can complain on Twitter, or you can get off your fat butt and actually do something about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not condoning violence. Never will I ever condone violence on a platform such as YouTube, owned by Google, who is probably in cahoots with the government and therefore spying on you. Never would I ever condone to stop using YouTube. It's great. YouTube is fantastic. But in a world where we're playing Minecraft, and this is in Minecraft, and your government becomes tyrannical, violence isn't the answer. It's a question. The answer is always yes. But it starts with reading. You know why it starts with reading? Because reading provides way for thought. Gives you ideas. It's where you learn. It's like I have textbooks from college over there on my shelf. I learned from those. Reading is how you learn. Period. How you really learn. I'm a hands-on learner. I learn by doing more often than not. It'd be useless without reading first. Reading is how you learn. And it builds bridges and neural pathways of thinking, And what's great about, the only thing better than learning from your own mistakes is learning from other people's mistakes and learning from other people's enlightenments as well. There's something to be learned from our American propaganda. There is something to be learned from the dangers of listening to propaganda. There's something to be learned from wondering about the philosophies of a broken man and his monstrous creator. You know, there's something to be learned from a glimpse of someone's life 100 years ago. You know, and regardless, it's creative. I enjoy, it's fun. You know, it's beautiful. This is my favorite book. Just the setup. Let's just read the setup. This is the first paragraph in the whole thing, and I think it's beautiful. It's fun to read, but that fun fosters creativity, and that creativity fosters free thought. When 451, I was reading it the other day, and I felt inspired, and I wrote a poem in my journal based on page 99. It was inspired by page 99 of at least this copy of 451. I don't know, you know, it's no one's probably ever going to read it except myself, but that's all that matters. You know, I was doing something with thought and with creativity, and it's a poem that no one else has ever written. There's something beautiful about that. But if you don't do that, if you don't have the capability to do that, then what are you other than just a slave to your maker? No one wants to be that. I'll leave you with this. I'll read this. I'll call it there. I think I've gotten my point across. Just to reiterate, we're on the brink of societal collapse. And I think the best way to fix it is by reading. But everybody has to do it. That's the hard part. A few miles south of Soledad, the Salinas River drops in close to the hillside bank and runs deep and green. The water is warm, too, for it has slipped twinkling over the yellow sands in the sunlight before reaching the narrow pool. On one side of the river, the golden foothill slopes curve up to the strong and rocky Galilean mountains. But on the valley side, the water is lined with trees, willows, fresh and green with every spring, carrying in their lower leaf junctures the debris of the winter's flooding, and sycamores with molted, white, recumbent limbs and branches that arch over the pool. On the sandy bank under the trees, the leaves lie deep and so crisp that a lizard makes a great skittering if he runs among them. Rabbits come out of the brush to sit on the sand in the evening, and the damp flats are covered with the night tracks of coons, and with the spread pads of dogs from the ranchers, and with the split wedge tracks of deer that come to drink in the dark. Read a book. Save society. Peace.